fake, delusional, and disingenuous. He stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
What's up, fellas? Back at it again. I wanted to talk a little bit about the COVID deaths that are happening all over the place. And, if you pay attention, it's a recurring theme. You see Reverend Jesse Jackson and his wife were hospitalized. They're out now after being tested positive for COVID. You're starting to see a lot of anti-vaxxers who have been adamant that no one should take advantage of testing, wearing masks, vaccinations, social distancing, a lot of those things. One of you guys asked me a question about about smoking and how it affects COVID infections and whatnot. And I found a paper that basically said that, COVID is transmissible through droplets, coughing, particulates in the air. So by that same logic and that line of thinking, if you're smoking and you just watch a person smoke and you see them inhaling deeply, and exhaling, blowing out smoke, which is in essence a particulate that floats in the air a little bit longer, than your regular breath. So you have these visible particulates that travel pretty far. A lot of times these people, they blow it right at you, blow it into crowds and whatnot. So if that person is infected, they've essentially blown, thousands, if not millions of particulates in your direction and in other people's directions, effectively exposing these people to infection. And the study also said that this was the same for vaping, that these people were more susceptible to infection than the average person who didn't smoke. I will have to go ahead and find the link. I didn't really plan on addressing it in that much detail here, but it came across my mind that the question was asked, so I thought that I would go ahead and put that out there. I didn't want him to think that I had forgotten, because that's been a few posts, a few shows back. So we're going to go through a few of these people and then talk about the effects that these people had on convincing other people not to take the precautions that they should take to protect themselves and the community. I mean, we have a duty to our communities, to our families, and to ourselves to do what we can to protect ourselves from possibly dying or suffering long-term effects from this disease. So we're going to talk about this conservative talk show host, Phil Valentine. He dies after battling with COVID-19, his employer says. So Phil Valentine was a Nashville-based conservative radio talk show host who had questioned the validity of COVID being a reality and the treatments of COVID, wearing masks, all of that. And Phil gets COVID and Phil dies after a battle. So I don't know how long Phil suffered from this, but I can assure you it wasn't pleasant. So in saying that, why would a reasonable person risk going through that if you can do something to prevent it? Here's another individual, a police officer. Basically this was a post off of Twitter. It says more science, less quackery. Hell no, some police officers and their unions oppose vaccination mandates, maybe for the same reason many are Trump supporters. Okay. So, as you can see, there's a recurring theme. And, I understand a lot of black people supported Trump and followed his rhetoric and pretty much just refused to hold him accountable for anything and trusted everything that he says when, he, by his own admission, he really doesn't know much about anything other than, running his businesses with regard to, putting people up in hotels, which isn't that much, has nothing to do with science or anything else. I'm sure he didn't, you can go back and look. He didn't make, stellar grades. And, it's pretty evident that he made it through based off being, people being paid off, and you have these people who are out here who basically are telling you not to do something, and then they're not doing it themselves and they're dying. So, you're going to stay in a burning house with, a fool who says that the house isn't on fire, because this is the equivalent. Okay, here's another. Caleb Wallace, anti-mask organizer and co-founder of the San Angelo Freedom Defenders, dies of COVID-19. Another radical right-wing group's, member and founder who passes because he believed a person based on a political ideology and not based on any science or facts or reasoning. This is tragic. People who would not under any other circumstances die are dying. These people, I'm sure they may have had underlying conditions. They may not have had underlying conditions, but that's irrelevant. Okay, here's another one. Out of oppositions, Texas, a Texan who led anti-mask efforts is hospitalized with COVID, wife says. So he exposed his wife and his children to COVID based on a political position, a political ideology. Again, another person here, outspoken conservative radio. Oh, that's the same guy, Phil Valentine, This is a little bit more about what he says. After, battling COVID-19 in December of 2020, he tweeted, "I have a very low risk of A, getting COVID, and B, dying of it. If I do, why would I risk getting a heart attack or paralysis by getting the vaccine?" None of this is based on any factual information, just some stuff that he was spewing out to, thousands of listeners on his little show there. And now there's no more Phil Valentine show because essentially he was resistant to reason. It's tragic, people. I mean, it's really tragic. Here's another group of naysayers. Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. Another, that I'm sure this was about Phil too. Tennis radio host doubted and mocked vaccines. Now he has COVID. This was before he died. Okay. Talks about admins finally stepping in to remove anti-vax mod caught repeatedly abusing their powers and pushing misinformation. And this is all over the place. This is on Facebook. This is everywhere. I mean, there are even nurses and some doctors who are out here who basically, because of their political position, who they align with, they are out here spreading misinformation that goes against everything that we've ever had to do with regard to training and treating patients. They're ignoring all of that, and they're telling people no, just giving them misinformation and putting these people in harm's way. So here's another Missouri Republican state rep. Susan Walsh just lost her husband to COVID-19. They were opposed to vaccinations. You can see them there. So she's lost her husband because they just, they refuse to believe it. How much is it going to take in order for people to realize that this thing is real? I mean, because the first position was COVID is not real. It's not real. It's just a figment of everybody's imagination. It is essentially just the flu, is what they were saying. Now they're getting it, and it gets real to them. And right before they die, they're asking, please just give me the vaccine, give me the vaccine, please. But we can't give it to you. And we have to tell you, you can't take it now. I mean, we've done everything that we can do. And until you see a person's face and their family's face, when you have to give them that information, things become very real to them. The finality of what they're facing becomes so apparent that it's like somebody who's about to run into a brick wall at 200 miles an hour. So I wonder what, after reaching that point, what goes through a person's mind when they finally realize that they've been duped into taking a position that essentially risked their lives, cost them their lives. No one's really sharing that, but it's happening. Here's another one. Faye Ding, 4 children are now orphans after their mother and father refused to get vaccinated and both died of COVID-19 within days of each other. The mom's final wish before getting intubated: make sure my kids get vaccinated. Another Texas tragedy from the Delta variant. These people were relatively young. They look like they're healthy people. I'm sure comorbidities were not a factor. But the odds of a mother and a father passing of the same situation, the same disease, the odds are pretty stacked against that. So that ought to give you some idea as to how bad this is and how tragic this is when it comes down to people gambling, that they're going to be okay when they have families, they have young children, They may have grandparents, great grandparents that they may be exposing. I told my cousin, I was telling him, don't go around my grandparents with that, and he is another one of these people. I mean, he's newly indoctrinated member of the woke community, and he believes in herbs and berries and all of that, and exercise and vegetarianism and all of that, and he is anti-medication, all of that. He's done a good job. He's lost weight and everything. But he's a damn good mechanic, and he drives trucks. But I'm not gonna go to a dump truck driver to get information about diet, exercise, medication, illnesses, any of that. And I've tried. I struggle. But he eventually got COVID, something he didn't even believe in. And after that, it was real. But then it was even more, false beliefs. Oh, I got over it because I ate nuts and berries, and I used magic salves and snake oil, and it worked for me. And that's why I didn't die of it. But he exposed his wife, his kids, my grandparents to that shit because he refuses to believe in science and to read reputable information about this and anything else. And that's not right. You can do whatever you want to with your situation, but don't risk other people. Don't risk other people's lives. If you want to go out there and wrestle with a fucking mountain lion and shit, you do that. Chances are you ain't gonna make it. And hey, I'll watch you. I'll even film it for you. Make some money for your family members so that they're, they got a little something, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see you wrestle that fucking, mountain lion and get mauled to death. It'll be very entertaining, But, it's just too much stupidity going on out here. This both sides shit, it's got to end. It's got to end, because there is no both sides when you have an idiot and you have a person who has spent the majority of their adult life being trained in trying to help people. If your child is choking to death and you run in the emergency room, you are not questioning what he's going to do or none of that shit. You're going to hand your child over and you're going to let him help your child. It's a shame that it has to get that tragic before people trust and basically submit to science and to a more knowledgeable individual. Why does it have to get to that point? Okay, here's another conservative radio, host, Mark Briner, hospitalized with COVID-19 last month. He said the U.S. is acting like Nazis for their vaccine efforts. I bet he doesn't feel that way now when he's in the hospital, along with the rest of those COVID patients, because they don't, they put you with the rest of the COVID patients. They don't, put you in a place where you're the only guy, and then when you heal up, you're good to go. No, they put you on a whole, ward full of people who have the same thing that you have. And guess what? Okay, if you're in a room, that's fine. But if you're in a room with you and another person that's got the same thing, guess what? You're going to get to watch that person suffer. If that person dies, you're going to watch that guy go through, his paces. And you're going to be scared to death. And you're going to hope that that's not me. I hope that's not me. Please save me. Please, doc, do everything you can. That's what you're going to say, just like everybody else. It's just like that movie, man. Gunny was saying, you know what? Shit gets bad, you're going to pray to Buddha, God, Yahweh, you know, the Muppets, anybody to save your ass. And this is the same situation. You know, let's go on down. We're going to talk about another little situation here where people are running out here trying to scam and shit, you know, trying to, you know, make up, you know, vaccination records. You know, here's, you know, a couple of guys tried to go to Hawaii. Yeah, and they busted them. You know, I used to live in Hawaii. Hawaii is no joke. They don't play that. They put them right in jail. There was another little cute blonde that did the same thing. She was sitting up. She hooked up with a, you know, black chick in the place where they made the cards, and she was entering the information. The black chick, you know, entered the information into the database, and, you know, the young little blonde there, cute little blonde, she was sending, you know, tons of people her way, you know, for the fake cards. But guess what? They caught their asses. And every single one of those people have been charged and are probably going to do some jail time. And, you know, I don't feel sorry for them. All you got to do is take a vaccine, you know. There's no fucking 5G in it. There's no nanobots in it, you know. If you want to know what's in it, all you got to do is read. You know, I've already posted, you know, the ingredients, what's in it. You know, there's no raisins, there's no oats, you know, there's no snake oil in it, you know, none of that stuff. You know, there's no horse medicine in it, you know, but what's in it is what's supposed to be in it to try to help you to not get infected with this disease, you know. And look, you know, this fallacy about why would I take it if I can still be infected? Well, the reason why you take it is because it keeps you from dying. It mitigates the harsher conditions that may occur as a result of you being infected. Because basically what they're saying is that it's probably not gonna, you know, there's a chance that you might not get it, but there's a very good chance that you will get it. And if you do get it, you know, you'll still be around. You know, can't spend money if you're dead. Can't go to the movies if you're dead. You can't get back to normal if you're dead. You know, you're not going to give two shits about the economy if you're dying. You're not going to give two shits about the Republican Party or, you know, the snake oil guy on the corner with the sign. You know, you're not going to give a shit about the ayahuasca guy or the fucking mushrooms or any of that. You're not going to give a shit about any of that. All you're going to want is to live. Trust me, I've seen it. I've seen it so much that I'm sick of it. You know, there's a point where you get tired of resuscitating people. You know, you get burned out. We're only human. There's only so much death you can see. There's only so much that you can take. And if you're not trained, if you don't have what a lot of these people have, you know, then you have even less of a tolerance for it. But that's a whole nother subject entirely. You know, right-wing cardinal who bashed the COVID-19 vaccine and spread conspiracy theories has been hospitalized with the virus. See, this same trend is going on. Right wing. Texas Governor Greg Abbott tests positive for COVID. He was another one that said that COVID didn't even exist. You know, having banned a mask and vaccine mandate in Texas. I mean, he threatened to basically not fund schools. You know, you got DeSantis doing the same thing in Florida. You have these Republican governors that basically are trying to put you in harm's way for the sake of supporting a used to be president who really didn't do a good job. You know, he even got it himself. He almost died of it, you know, but he didn't want you to know that because he felt like it would make us look weak. So he'd rather stand up there barely breathing at the top of the staircase, acting like he's okay, rather than admitting that, you know, telling people you don't want this and this is bad. If you notice, the first lady was not in sight for a long time. So she was sick. He probably exposed his son to that. He exposed all kinds of staff to it, people that had to be around him for the sake of not looking weak. And that is tantamount to murder. You're exposing these people and you have information. You know how bad this is. You get infected, yet you still act like it's not a big deal, I mean, if anything else was happening out here, you would want to be warned, right? You would want your fellow man to warn you of the possibility of you being exposed to something that is going to, could affect you and your life. Wouldn't you? There's one more GOP leader who fought against vaccine dies after a week-long battle with coronavirus. Can you imagine struggling to breathe for a week? 80% chance of you not coming off a vent if they put you on one. You got a 50-50 chance of coming off the ICU alive if you got COVID. GoFundMe offers 17,000 refunds to a donor of an Instagrammer claiming she was neurologically damaged by COVID vaccine. So she lied so she could make money off of it. So that's what you're dealing with out here, man. You're dealing with a bunch of carpetbaggers, a bunch of people who, some of these people, are basically actively supporting, legislation to keep you, black folks, from voting. Just so that they can stay in charge. They'll say and do whatever they want to do and say in order to prevent you from having a fair shake at representation in this government. And, if they want to keep a certain segment of the population from voting, then guess what? They don't represent you. They don't like you. They only want you to vote if you're going to vote for them. But they don't even know if you're going to vote for them or not. If you're a certain persuasion, they just don't want you to vote. And if you think I'm lying, just go around. Look from state to state, Georgia, Texas. Look at these places where these people are. Look in Florida, where you got 23,000 people popping up positive, and the deaths are skyrocketing there. They got to put refrigeration trucks out there because they can't cremate or bury people fast enough. You guys start seeing trucks of bodies out here, and you can't go to bury your relatives, and you can't go to the hospital because the hospital's overrun. It's so bad that it starts to affect your ability to get food in grocery stores. For the regular, service industry comes to a halt. But you got these people, let's just get back to business. And what that essentially means is your health and your safety be damned. Just get out there and do your job. Just go to work. And that's the belief system of a certain persuasion of people. You guys be smart. It's not that hard. Listen and look at these things from a macro level, not a micro level. Look at it from a wide view and look at what's actually going on. Don't get caught up in the misinformation. Don't get caught up in propaganda. If this was a military situation and propaganda was being, spread all over the place, you know what they do? They do things to stop that propaganda. If they got radio stations like World War II or whatever, they had radio stations, they're blaring out all this stuff. They bomb those radio stations. They shut that down. We drop flyers to put out the correct information, But here in America, I never thought that I would see a concerted effort to put out information that is blatantly false, that's risking people's lives. But that's what we got here. And we are in a questionable spot historically. And it's truly sad. The implications are huge. But I'm getting off topic. It's been fun, guys. I really appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys listening. I just want everybody to be safe, want everybody to be healthy, so that we can, spend time with our families. We can have some off time. We don't have to worry about dying, miserably with something that could be prevented. I appreciate you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. Support the other channels. I appreciate it.
You are listening to Abuki Cabal, the analytical savage.
I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.